Albion Online officially released on July 17th, 2017, to mere middling reception after having a number of alpha and beta tests. A lot of players at the time perceived the release version of the game to be subpar in comparison to previous iterations seen throughout the beta testing stages of the game. This has changed massively as 6 years after release of the game, it's generally doing exceedingly well from the analytics that you can find online. From the numbers that Sandbox Interactive shares to concurrent Twitch viewers and even SteamDB statistics, it's clear to see that hundreds of thousands of people do play Albion every single day. This game is near and dear to me as it is by far the game that I've put the most time into over the past 5 years, as well as being the focal point of this YouTube channel. It's a game that seemingly ticks all the boxes for a very niche subset of players. So what's the argument that I'm trying to raise? Well, recently the Albion content creator community has lost a few great names, most notably Levi, who decided to quit due to sheer burnout and being quite open about this. There are others such as Nazori. Professor Scythe has just now officially stepped back from content creation, although this is because of real life obligations, but I will say that he hadn't been uploading or playing Albion for a long time before he announced his departure, just saying. And these are really just a few recent developments. There are some legendary creators from way back in the day like Nosk.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And even Hell Gulfer, if anyone remembers him or watched him, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that dude was freaking epic. And obviously yours truly either uploads like 14 videos a month about Albion or nothing at all for 6 months. So why do I quit making videos and just stop playing this game that I so often convey my love for? To make this long video short, for me personally, I believe that Albion Online lacks depth, and this is what I'm going to explore in this video and try to explain my thoughts. If you've spent any amount of time playing Albion, you might realize that you're finding an abundance of new players to the game, but struggling to find players that are truly well versed in the game that actually know what they're doing. So where are the veteran players? The no-lifers? The players that would only consider touching grass if you offered a transport mammoth in return? This is where the fundamental issue with Albion Online lies, because while there definitely are veteran players that will absolutely annihilate you in the game's 1v1 PvP scenarios, such as Corrupted Dungeons and the Mists, in the grand scheme of Albion being an MMORPG, this doesn't equate to a meaningful percentage of the player base. The vast majority of players that could be considered veterans are usually participating in Albion's largest player draw, which is the land control system. The way that this works is that players join guilds, which have a maximum of 300 players each. These guilds are then a part of alliances, and the different alliances fight for control over territories that can be found in the black zones. To make sure that every territory gets a respectable fight for its control, Sandbox Interactive relegates the fighting to timers, and different territories have different timers. This is to make sure that players from different time zones are able to participate in this gameplay element. There is only one core issue that I like to bring up with this feature though, as most of these players are not actually populating the game world outside of their given fight timers. And this leads to a decrease in veteran players being seen in the world. Not to mention most of the high-ranking guilds do usually have what are called hideouts, and most of these veteran players just sit in their hideout all day. I see this as a problem because one of the largest inspirations for me to become stronger in other MMORPGs such as World of Warcraft, RuneScape for example, was seeing players occupy the main cities decked out in the best possible gear and honestly looking hella freaking dope, to put it lightly.
Now you try. First get a jar. Patrick, that's the Frostmourne.
this?
I mean, they make my character look like a washed up bum in comparison. And Albion makes up for this by forcing new players to be essentially cannon fodder for experienced players in areas of the game such as the mists, which I think is problematic in its own right, but I won't get into that too much in this video. So the game world seems to lack experienced players that newer players can see and become inspired by. Not exactly the largest problem in the world, and probably not deserving of a video all on its own, but I believe it does deserve mentioning. Much larger issues with Albion's lack of depth lies in the fundamental way it's designed. Albion Online these days enjoys an extremely healthy player base, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it's only because of the fact that the game is available on all platforms, because, I do believe Albion has an amazing art style, the pace of progression is also awesome, along with a long list of other things, but let's not kid ourselves, the fact that anyone can play this game on their phone is a massive benefit to the total player number statistics. I'm going to be just brutally honest here and say that the only people benefiting from Albion Online being available as a mobile game are the people that only play the mobile version of the game and Sandbox Interactive. The fact that Albion was designed from the ground up to be playable on mobile has meant that gameplay, graphics, UI, game scope, and complexity have suffered drastically from what could have been. Imagine if World of Warcraft was designed to be played on mobile. I mean, it would be a completely different game. And in Albion, these mobile players play together with the PC players. That just creates a whole list of problems that, wouldn't have to be there if the game wasn't designed from the ground up to be on mobile. Albion is designed to be a hardcore, full loot PvP sandbox game, something that appeals to, again, a very niche group of pretty hardcore gamers, and does not at all appeal to most casual mobile gamers. Okay, so I do want to quickly highlight in defense of Albion that hardcore mobile gamers, if such a thing exists, do seem to really love Albion, because compared to other games for the platform, it is obviously just leaps and bounds better than most anything on the market in terms of complexity and gameplay scope, not to mention monetization ethics. But after playing this game for literally thousands of hours, you really do come to the realization that combat could be so much more fluid, dungeons could be more densely packed, and this last thing is the most important, there could be more outplay potential. Albion Online is, I've already said it a number of times, but it's a hardcore full loot PvP sandbox game. Even if you don't want to engage with the PvP aspects, you can't really deny that eventually all players are at the very least strongly incentivized to engage with the PvP elements of the game. This does create a problem, in my opinion, when the game is simple enough to be understood and potentially even mastered by just a child borrowing their dad's phone on the weekends to be able to play. Alright, it's at this point, we've come to this point in the video, and I'm just gonna come at you with my main complaint and my biggest criticism of Albion that, from my speaking with multiple creators, is generally the largest problem with the game. Combat in Albion is just the world's most complex game of rock, paper, scissors. Luckily, players do have the option to gain an advantage by either throwing more silver into their build, making them a pseudo raid boss, or by adding players to their team. But I would argue that that is a really shitty way of balancing a PvP game. I won't deny that skill and timing are important, but someone who has even a fleeting grasp of games such as League of Legends, or even ARPGs such as Diablo, Path of Exile, for example, will be able to essentially master Albion's combat within a couple hundred hours at the maximum. Albion's combat feels more like studying for a test in school than an actual display of skill. For example, I know that through multiple fights, trial and error, that forge hammers in corrupted dungeons will lose to even the smallest little pea-brained troglodyte mother-flipping bow player. Now, I will ask you, Does this equate to a fun combat experience? I would argue that, maybe not that much. Maybe not a great combat. Maybe just not a great experience in general. So obviously counters do exist in games like League of Legends as well. But the thing is that there are almost always ways of outplaying your opponent if you are that good, or at least making your loss more bearable to them, not just losing astronomically. The Greek legend of Sisyphus comes to mind if you've ever had the misfortune of playing a certain weapon in Albion against someone that is hard countering you. Honestly, you might as well just type /suicide instead of wasting your time, because at least you have the option to, unlike my boy Sisyphus, who was forced to endlessly roll a boulder uphill for all eternity, which, to be completely honest with you, after fighting the 4th bow player in a row, somehow that sounds delightful. My main takeaway, my main point of this video, the thing that I really want to drill home, what I really want to tell you guys is that if someone asks me in my Discord channel, link in the description, how are you so good at playing X weapon? How can I improve in Albion? How can I get better in the game? My honest answer is not, to practice, to VOD review, although that is pretty important, does help you out quite a bit too. But my honest answer would be to literally just click on each weapon, read its ability, each weapon and armor, read its ability, find out its strength and weaknesses, and really just try to delay your realization that the game is just rock, paper, scissors on Ronnie Coleman levels of steroids.
Making Albion Online playable on mobile devices has been a challenging journey. We never compromised when it came to the depth of features and mechanics, so we had to, and in many cases still have to, find ways of making these complex features accessible with the limited space available on a phone screen.
God damn it, Hankies!